Well, good evening and welcome to a Better Glynn's presentation of our leadership lab this evening. Many of you all know that a couple of weeks ago, we were able to sit down with some administrators from the Glynn County Public School System and spoke with them about Glynn County's restart plan for the fall. A lot of you had great questions, and many of you have had either to opt into virtual learning options or to send your kids back to in-person, face-to-face learning. Since then, we've learned that Glynn County Public Schools has pushed their start back a little bit, not too much. So many of you are still trying to figure out what virtual learning and homeschooling looks like. Well, tonight, we're going to offer y'all some help. And I had to go and recruit a heavy hitter on this one. One of my colleagues, friends, classmates, fellow Brunswick High alumnus, who is in the Atlanta area now. Her name is Ty Lewis. Hey, Ty.
What's up, Brunswick? I am back. Hello.
Yes, good to have you. Ty is the CEO and founder of Educationally Speaking Center for Learning, Inc. in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area. But she is definitely Brunswick tied because she went to the best high school in Brunswick, Georgia. Ain't that right, Dewana and Kelly?
Man,
I disagree. We're gonna let you have that one.
Let's keep this thing rolling.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I'm joined here with my co-host and co-founders of A Better Glynn, Dewana Walker and Kelly Mathis. They are both involved in the Glynn County Public School Systems, and I'm glad to have both of them on with me so that we can talk with Ty about a couple of different things. We want to talk about virtual learning. We want to talk about homeschooling. And we also want to talk about what this new normal looks like for all of us, because many of us are trying to figure this thing out. I'm a parent. I got 2 grade school kids. And listen, it's hard, y'all. It's really hard. And I can't imagine what it could be like for educators as well. But here's the good news about Ty. Ty has been doing this for a long time. She's a bit ahead of the curve when it comes to virtual learning, when it comes to homeschooling. And I want you guys to hear some of her story first before we get into asking the expert the questions, because I want to make sure y'all realize that we really do have an expert in the room when it comes to this, because she's been doing this for a hot minute. So Todd, give me just a synopsis of your journey from being an educator in the school system up that way, and then moving to starting your own program, and how that has impacted your view on what we're doing now with all this virtual learning, and how many people are coming to you now trying to learn what to do, what next steps are. So tell me about that journey. Give me a synopsis of that.
So my name is Ty Lewis. I'm the founder, like John said, of Educationally Speaking Center for Learning, and we are the bridge that connects the child to the curriculum. I started off in private school, moved to public school and APS. I have been teaching about 15 years, been an educator about 15 years. My last job was an assistive technology specialist for special education. So I'm certified in elementary education, special education, curriculum and instruction, and reading. And so that job afforded me the opportunity to be able to visit different schools and work with students with special needs who needed assistive technology. And what I found was working with those students doing assessments is that I was working with students in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade who are reading on a 1st and 2nd and 3rd grade level. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I vowed to myself that I would not repeat the cycle of pushing children out into the world saying that they graduated, but they're not ready to be able to apply what they learned and then say, I'm going to have these real world experiences. So you're pushing out non-readers who are graduating and they're struggling and they're unable to find jobs. And so we're celebrating success, but really they're failing underneath. And so my goal was to be able to have a facility or a center that focused on literacy, even though we work in math, but we really focused on literacy. We assess every child that comes into the building, and we make sure that we close those gaps in literacy. And when we do that, you'll see children, their self-esteem increase, and just they will just develop a love for learning because they have the ability to access the curriculum on their level. And so I started the center 5 years ago, and we have been rocking and rolling ever since. This year has been our busiest year. Our biggest program is our tutoring program. We have our summer school program, and I also provide business coaching and consultation and homeschool consultations. And this has been an overwhelming journey. I tried to prepare my parents and my clients back in February, but I've literally been overwhelmed and busy, and that's a good thing, but it's very overwhelming trying to make sure that I'm giving the parents everything that they need so that their child can be successful.
Yeah, let's hit that literacy thing a little bit more, because there are several angles you could have taken in terms of what you wanted to address. But why is it so important as a parent for me to understand the importance of literacy for my child and for anyone else who's listening? Why is that something that is super important for any child's academic progress?
Well, when you talk about literacy is the foundation for everything. So I tell my parents, when we talk about, or my clients, when we talk about subjects, social studies and science and reading and math, you teach across the curriculum. And what that looks like is I can teach social studies through reading, but how can a child access the social studies text, or a math problem and be able to process if they aren't able to read? And so many parents will come to me and they'll say, my child can read. And then, not in a mean way, but I'll say, or they'll say, the teacher told me that my child has a problem with reading or a deficit in reading. And so my question to the parent is always, in what area? Because there are 5 areas of reading. And so you have all of these children that are coming, and they're in the 4th and the 5th grade, and the teachers are telling them, oh, they have a deficit in comprehension. Well, no, comprehension is the last area of reading. So I have literally 5th and 6th graders and 7th graders in my building that we are going back to the first area of reading, which is phonemic awareness. And then we're going to phonics. So if you're in the 6th grade and you have a deficit in phonics, you're going to be working with letter tiles and spelling words and blending and doing all of these things. And it may sound elementary, but that is the foundation. And again, that is what allows the child to be able to master social studies and science and math.
That's good. That's good. So let's transition back to March here, because a lot of folks in March had to abruptly move to what is this virtual learning for their children, right? So what kind of things were you hearing around that time, and even now, that is most frustrating for parents and teachers who are trying to make this thing work?
I think on both sides, and I always want to place this pin here, and not being mean, but we call this homeschool, but it's pandemic schooling. Because if you take a homeschool consultation with me, I'll show you the difference between the two. And so you're providing support to your child based on the information that's given to you from the school. But what I heard the most that parents were saying, and I think it's on both sides, educators and parents, is, I don't know what to do. And so literally everybody was thrust into this situation, and no one had any knowledge of virtual. What platform are we going to use? How do I keep 20 students? How do I keep the attention of 20 students? How do I differentiate instruction? When you're talking about students with special needs that, are deaf, hard of hearing, or autistic, or mild intellectual, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to follow my child's IEP? And so everybody was in this situation, and they're like, okay, now what next? There are some children that came home with packets, some children that came home with nothing. And then there were some schools that operated in excellence. And then there were some children, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, where they didn't even sign in at all. Their last day of school was literally their last day of school in March. And so, that's that equity piece. And like I said, we'll talk about that later, but Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I don't know what to do. Administrators don't know what to do. District level, the superintendents, everybody is, struggling because we've never seen anything like this before. And that's why I always tell my parents, please allow grace. Please just be calm, be peaceful, because this thing is a day by day process.
Mm-hmm. So all these folks don't know what to do. Everybody's just trying to wing it.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give? Okay, so I'm a parent that has to have structure. If
Right.
I don't have structure, I'll go crazy.
Right.
So with the knowledge that the school system don't necessarily know what to do, that we're building this thing as we go, how do you comfort people like me that's crazy, that want the structure, but knowing that the schools don't necessarily know what it is that they're doing? What type of advice will you give to us for homeschooling or virtual learning options?
Please don't wing it. That's number one. And I love what you said, John, when you said the structure piece. A lot of parents are seeing chaos because of the lack of structure. And so that needs to be addressed, because if a child is disciplined and has structure and you're saying do A, B, C, D, then the transition will run more smoothly in your house. And so you have that structure. Use your resources. That's the biggest thing that you can do right now. Use your resources. Every person, every human being knows a teacher. And so it's as simple as you reaching out and saying, I need help. And when you do that, you'll see villages forming, and then you'll have the assistance that you need. And so there are so many resources, so many websites, and it's free. So you're not scrambling for these things. The access is right there at your fingertips. And there are reputable websites that are amazing, that even if you don't have the resources from the school, you can still make sure that your child is on track.
That's
and
good.
do the right thing.
So speaking of resources, there are parents who are under-resourced, there are students who are under-resourced, and there are schools who are under-resourced. When it comes to parenting, like there's some essential workers or people that just got to go to work, and then now they're trying to figure out how to homeschool when they're working. So everybody doesn't have the privilege to be able to do certain things. What type of encouragement or even help would you provide, or even advice you would provide for those folks who are in those under-resourced situations over the next year or so while we work through this?
So my heart breaks literally for the essential workers and the parents who are unable to afford tutoring, or, the homes for a teacher to come into their house to homeschool. And so the biggest thing that I have seen now in the next wave of education is called pods. But what's happening is it's that equity piece again. And so you see, and I'll say in Atlanta, we have South Low SES, and then the schools up north. Up north, you have the people pooling their resources together, and they have the funds to pay a teacher to come in, and they'll have 5 or 6 scholars inside of their house. And they're taken care of, and they don't have to worry about anything. They have that one maybe stay-at-home mom who's like, I'll, watch your kids. All of you go to work, and they have the resources. And then on the flip side, you come on the south side, and you have the middle class and the high class, residents. But what about the people who are really struggling? And so again, that's where the pods come into play. And so what that looks like is you meet or get with 5 or 6 parents, and then you host 5 or 6 or 7, whatever you feel comfortable with, scholars inside of your house. Then you ask for a teacher, whether that's volunteer, whether you pool your money together and you say, okay, we're going to pay you this amount, or you have a tutor come in and like the beginning of the week, and then you do something towards the end. And so this works for the moms and the dads that have to go back to work, but you have someone that's willing to stay at home. And so it's an amazing resource and a great idea. And so that would be my suggestion for parents. Find a pod in your area. I know up here we have a pod for South Fulton. And when I say these parents are hustling, They are hustling and they are putting their pods together. They're like, listen, I have a second grade classroom pod. I have a room off. You know, it's going to be, we're social distancing. I need a teacher. And then a teacher will say, I'm here. And then think about it. You have teachers who are retiring, teachers who aren't going back because they don't want the face-to-face and they're scared. And so this is a great way to also make money. If you're an educator, like this is the best time to be on this side of history because there are so many opportunities right now for you to be able to flex your credentials. Yeah. And, you know, so it's a win-win situation. And then this is a great thing for sub-teachers, substitute teachers, and for retired teachers as well. And so I would suggest to the parents, especially in Brunswick, to create pods. Who are you familiar with? Who's your village? And who can come in and teach your children?
Yeah, that's really helpful.
That's
really helpful. Yeah. Really helpful. Question for you in terms of you deciding to begin your own organization. Do you see any distinctions in the way you approach educating kids than the approach that you saw in the Atlanta public school system? And how do you differentiate that approach to what you're doing besides what they're doing? So
for me, you know, everybody wants to separate ministry and education. I can't. And you can do ministry and be the hands and feet in education, but it's so much deeper here in my building. And so for me, it's about educating the whole child. And that's that mental, emotional, social, physical, and spiritual piece. And not only that, but I have a room when my parents come in and they need prayer. I got my oil and the prayer hands and all that. So the difference is it's a village. And then we're able to cater to the, you know, you always hear we're for the children and we're catering to the individual needs and we're differentiating instruction. I get to do that here because it's literally a step-by-step process. And so when children come into my facility, we're assessing, like I said before, every child. And parents will come in and say, can you get my child to pass the Georgia milestones? And I look them straight in the face and say, no, because that's not what we do. We want to make sure that your child is, and I know you're going to hear me say this over and over, accessing the curriculum at their level so that they won't be frustrated or anything else. And so when you look at the school system, they have they have special ed, you know, they have EIP, but when you look at, you know, these things, it's like, okay, inclusion is a big thing. So now you have students who are struggling and it's the inclusion piece, but you're placing them in the general ed classroom and they may have an aide, they may have that special ed teacher, but there are specific things that they need as outlined in their IEP. And so again, we get to do that here. We get to work one-on-one with every child. There's no group tutoring here at all. And so we see, we analyze the data and our data drives instruction. And so we get to pace ourselves. We get to work on a skill, you know, for as long as we need to, because the outcome is we want a better child. That's the outcome. And so sometimes sessions may be uplifting and encouraging a child. That's what it is what it is. But I know when every child walks out this door, they're going to be a better child. And so I get to do that well, not me, but my teacher tutors get to do that every day. But when you set that climate and that atmosphere from a leader's perspective, you know, it changes the game. And so people always say, you know, what makes you different? It's the heart. It's the ability to hear, number one, from God, understand that this is ministry, not just putting out programs because I want to make money, but always, like I tell my team members, our children are always first. There's nothing that comes first. They are always first. And that's my vision. And when I pass on, it's going to continue. Children first, always.
Again, this is a Better Glynn's Leadership Lab with CEO and founder of Education and Speaking Center for Learning, Inc., Ty Lewis. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. I got a question for you, Ty, because this is one of the frustrating things for parents. And I'm going to turn it over to my educators soon, but, you know, I got to get all my parent questions up in here. So a lot of schools standardize testing. or they want to be able to standardize testing, right? Or teach to standardized testing.
To the
But you
test.
don't, yes, but you don't see very many schools who standardize resources.
Mm,
Or,
Good.
so if you are in a school system that does not standardize resources for kids, how do you best approach that as a parent or even an educator?
advocate. So that's you going to PTA meetings, using your voice, going to the board meetings, writing letters to the superintendent, making sure you're always up to the school. And when they see that you are an active participant in your child's life, things will begin to shift. Again, our group, South Fulton Parents, when I say things in South Fulton and Fulton County are moving because of the letters that have been written, because we are not backing down, because we are letting, administration know that we need these resources. Our children need food. They need hotspots. When you look at South Fulton, what does it, you see all the low APS, all of the low SES schools. And these babies don't have resources. They don't, and they're giving them computers, the Chromebooks and everything like that, but they may not have a hotspot. And so now the counties are issuing hotspots for the kids. And so again, when you use your voice and go to the PTA meetings, build that relationship with the teachers, guess what? You're always going to come out on top. And so you get resources by being a resource and by stepping up and stepping in and making sure that the teachers and the administrators, again, are seeing your face. We can't complain from the back. We can't. And, we can't say what somebody else has. We have to be able to put our feet to the ground and do the work.
That's good. I heard this deep down in my soul as you were speaking, Ty. And I need to speak for that parent, because there's a parent out there who says, PTA meeting, sis, I can't do that. I gotta work a 9 to 6. I gotta come home and cook for these kids. And I gotta get up early in the morning, take 3 buses to get there. How am I going to be able to get involved at the PTA when those meetings are right in the middle of me trying to get myself together for the day?
So the PTA meetings are usually scheduled, right? Even if you go to 1 or 2, then, even now the board meetings are online and we still have parents that aren't attending. Like, what's the excuse? Seriously. And so again, John, I know you said resources, and I'm going to say this, but I have a blog with every resource you can think of. And I'm constantly telling parents to go to the blog, and they don't. And the resources are there and free. So I take the time and write the blog, and it's free. So we have to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable, and that we have to understand that everything is not going to be handed to us. We have to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. Yeah. And so, like I said, no, there aren't any PTA meetings, but there are a lot of board meetings that you have a computer and you can write a letter. And so you may not be able to attend the PTA meeting, but you can do the work. Work somewhere.
You said free. So that means that now you got to give us the blog URL so people knows what it was free.
Educationallyspeaking.blog. That's the blog. And I need to update because I haven't written in a while because it's been crazy. But educationallyspeaking.blog, I've even broken the Common Core standards down for you. And reading, ELA, and math, like, I do the work.
Free resources, y'all. So go check that out.
YouTube channel teaching you how to, work with your child in the 5 areas of reading.
Mm-hmm. And after this session, we'll provide all those links for you all over to Better Glynn in a separate post so you all can see all of those. But I wanted to make sure you all knew that there are resources out there, free resources out there that could help you on this journey. Now, my last question before I turn it over to Dewana is about Black and brown babies and their experiences at schools, as opposed to children who may be of majority or white culture, right?
Yeah.
we all know the disparities, the number and the disparities in education gap there. What can we do to help bridge that gap? And then what are you doing, at your center to help bridge some of that disparity and those gaps that are there on the education side?
So just quick story. I'll never forget when I was talking about Mackenzie, because she started reading at 4. And I was talking to one of my Caucasian colleagues. And so, we were talking about, the literacy gap again, and how important it was for me in my household for my children to be able to read and have an advantage, And so he was like, it's like you're treating your children, like slaves. And I hate, but because why are they like they need to play and I'm like, my children don't have the advantage. And that's something that we sweep under the rug and that we don't talk about. And as an educator, I've seen too many children fall through the gap for my children not to have the advantage. And so with that, I always built this business on, it starts in my house first, whether that's ministry, education, family, it starts in my house first. And so there's no way that I can lean in and teach a child how to read when my children can't read. And so when you talk about that, the black and the brown, our children are so far behind. And there's such a gap. And I saw it this summer, the pandemic. And usually for our summer program, we teach the child the next grade level standards. We weren't even able to do that because the gaps were so wide. And so when you talk about equality, every child can have an education. When you talk about that equity piece, it's like, what are you doing for the students to support them for an equal opportunity for success? And so you talk about the resources, you talk about the funding, you talk about the academic support. I tell my parents all the time, if you listen to the board meetings, if the children were going back to school, they don't have the funding to remediate them at all. And so you have that gap from March to August. And if you didn't do anything with your child, I mean, really, like, listen to these stats, because I have it in my blog. When you talk about 2 months of reading skills, if you didn't do anything with your child, are lost over the summer. By 6th grade, students can lose up to 18 months of learning loss. And it takes at least 6 weeks, and my educators know, y'all know, of remediation when a child comes back to school. So literally the first 6 weeks are the remediation piece. So you're talking about our black kids who may not have done anything this summer. The parents may be lacking the resources. And when you talk about the summer, and I'm including pandemic March to June, how do you think these kids are going to fare when they come back in August? Like, I saw it this summer. The gap was so wide. It was so wide. And so learning loss is real. That summer slide, it's real. And so you just have to work every day with your child. Make sure you're reading. Make sure you're engaging your child. It's not always sitting down and doing the work. But again, you can do something. So even if there is a lack of resources, there isn't a lack of books. There are books online that you can pull for your child. There are free resources online that you can pull for your child. The key is to do something every single day to eliminate or at least close the gaps.
I'm going to turn this over to my colleagues, Dewana and Kelly. Those of you who are watching on Zoom or on Facebook, feel free to submit your questions. We do see them show up on Facebook. One of our team members can let us know you have a question, and we'll ask Ty those questions around the end here. But I'm going to have Dewana and Kelly step in and ask some questions from their side of things in the school system in Glynn County.
You gave us a lot of information, but I want to go back on special needs. What recommendation would you give a parent who has a child with special needs? that may be accustomed to that in-person instruction who is now attempting to do virtual learning?
Oh, Lord Jesus. Okay, so first of all, let's go back. I want every parent, and this is the involvement piece, to be able to sit in the IEP meeting. A lot of our parents are receiving these IEPs and are signing off, and they don't know what is in the IEP. So I do special education advocacy. So I go sit in the meetings. And when I look at the goals and objectives and then look at the data, it doesn't match. And so you have a child in May that's reading 23 words per minute, but their goal by the end of the next school year is to read 93. No. And so, and they're checking it off like progress. No. And so first of all, attend the IEP meetings. If you did not attend the IEP meetings, if you can't, you have the ability to reschedule. That's number one. Or attend by phone, or you can attend virtually. But you want to make sure that you know everything that's in your child's IEP. That's number one. And this is the advocacy part. Number two, make sure you get a accommodation and modification that you can for your child. I teach us that because you ask for an assistive technology assessment so that your child can receive assistive technology. All of these things that you are granted, but you may not know that you have access. Access is going to be granted today. So speech, look at the goals. Do they match where your child is, or are they just rolling over speech goals from the previous year? And so read through the IEP. As the parent, you don't have to sign anything.
Right.
So they give you a draft copy, hire me as your special education advocate. I go over the draft. And then I give you the okay to sign. So you need somebody to advocate on your behalf. That's number two. Number three, read that IEP like thoroughly and know. And if you don't know, ask questions. What is this vocabulary? What does this mean for my child? Is this the best setting for my child? Ask all of these things because that is very important. So when we move to virtual learning, you have the IEP. Every parent has a copy of their IEP, okay? If you don't, you need to talk to your school. Every parent has a copy. Use that IEP to drive instruction. I don't care if it's virtual. The teacher is still supposed to be following the IEP because the child, I mean, it's federal. So the child, you have to, it's a law, you have to follow that. So, and if you're having difficulty, always reach out to the teacher. That is when we talk about resources, that is a resource. So if your child has special needs, you're supposed to be seeing 3 people, okay? And sometimes 2, the gen ed teacher and the special ed teacher. If you have a child with special needs, you should not just be communicating with the general ed teacher. No, gen ed, special ed, and if your child is receiving a service such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, you need to be talking to those service providers as well. And so that's that village concept once again. And so you're not lost because they are supposed to be giving you resources and walking you through the process of teaching your child. I need to give a shout out to APS because APS did an amazing job with their special education teachers and the case managers. So the leads, special ed leads, I'm sorry. They did an amazing job and they had to reach out to their caseload of students and check in with them. So if your child's teacher was not checking in with you, that's an issue. Write a letter, go downtown, make some noise.
Okay.
Is that okay?
No, I'm
straight to the point, like.
Hey, you go straight to it.
Yeah.
Well, Ms. Ty, my question is, some educators think might be missing from the overall experience for parents who choose the virtual learning is that physical fitness. How have you addressed this in your program?
So we started this summer. And so the children that came to us were able to participate. So we had virtual instruction.
Okay.
And then we had our extracurricular activities. So they had art and PE. And dance. So they were up and moving.
Okay.
And we had, I know you're asking about physical, but let's talk about reality. We also had SEL, the social emotional learning piece. And so again, we're covering everything. So just because we're teaching virtually doesn't mean that it can't be done. It can be done. Okay. And so that physical piece, up and moving, we had yoga. So the kids, they were engaged and they took PE every day for an hour.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's very important. And in the fall, next week, I'll be releasing classes through our online academy that parents can sign up for. So it's not just, my child is sitting in front of a computer every day with instruction. They're going to be taking coding and art and dance and Spanish. And so I'm offering these things as electives for parents. And because it's virtual, you can access us anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to be able to, I think that the access piece, being able to access it anywhere is going to be in that.
That has been, when I say a major move for my business, we had a student in Dubai attend our summer program.
And I think that's the beauty of the virtual learning because of the act, being able to expand it to other places.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I want to go back. You mentioned about the social emotional piece.
Yes.
So we know how important that is for our students. What guidance can you offer parents or caregivers who may be facing challenges fostering that social emotional learning as they adapt to the virtual learning?
So it's not difficult. It can be done. I'm hearing a lot of stories, a lot of children that are really becoming more attached to their parents, a lot of crying, that emotional trauma. I would suggest that you have a counselor on hand. Back to resources. Email your school counselor because that's what they're getting paid to do. And so that is a free resource. Those who don't have, for those who may struggle, financially, that's a free resource. There are other parents who are able to hire a therapist and talk about the social emotional piece. And there are also free resources online. I did my whole social emotional learning and downloaded it from I think it's Everly, but it was a whole curriculum on compassion. And the kids loved it. So we were able to talk about compassion and then tie it into real world experiences with everything that's going on in the world. So it was it was amazing. And so I would suggest to the parents that please talk to your children every day and please give them grace. Please don't yell at them. These kids, it's a traumatic experience. They're not in school. They're not seeing their friends. You have COVID. Black males are dying. And then everything else with their little minds that they're going, through with their little human bodies, their little human selves. So we just have to make sure that they have a space of peace and that they are able to grow and that you're gentle with them because it's hard. And there's going to be a lot of fixing for children that go back into the school setting because this thing could be a year and every child can't adapt to virtual learning because that may not be their learning style. And it's not fair. It's something we have to go through, but a child doesn't understand that. Even my children are homeschooled. They're homeschooled and they're like, I'm sick of this. So right. Everybody is being impacted. They're like, I don't want to do school. And I'm like, you did school. What are you talking about? And so you see it and they're like, because I can't be with my friends. And so on Fridays, we don't homeschool. We have meetups with other homeschool families and do field trips. And so it's impacting all of them.
Right.
So be gentle, be kind.
Well, let me ask this, Ms. Tog. I want to piggyback off at the counseling standpoint.
Okay.
What do you think, and what would you recommend for counselors to assist with the virtual learning as far as the needs of the students, as well as possibly with some of the parents? What will be some of the best approaches that you can see that a counselor can support them in this time, especially with this pandemic and the virtual learning and all of that that goes with it?
Talking to the parents, sending out newsletters, giving them strategies to be able to work with their children, making sure that they reach out and having a safe space. I was talking to one of my clients in my coaching program, and she's starting her business, her coaching business, and she's about to provide that counseling piece, the mental health, and talk about behavior strategies, because a lot of parents are saying their kids are acting out. Their
Right.
kids are not bad. It's what's happening. And so you always ask that question, what is happening? What's the root? The child is not just going to say, oh my gosh, I want to be, or act out today. There's a root. And so counselors can lean in and again, create pamphlets, give the parents and, caregivers or, teacher strategies to be able to, facilitate instruction and to be able to work with your children at home. That is very important. And this is where we need counselors the most, to be able to lean in and assist families and caregivers.
Yeah, because I know it's possible. It's easier as a counselor to do it when they're in school. Within school, see them there. Hey, I can talk to you. I can assess what's going on. But when you talk about somebody that's doing virtual learning, and just like you just said, the frustration and not being understand, the parents are getting frustrated because they can't help the kids like they like to, and so that piece right there, even though they're not in school, that's why I asked that question, because it's going to be something, like you said, who knows how long this is going to take.
Who knows? And the counselor can create small groups. So they can have 8 students in one setting. Right. And so they provide that service. And so you're still seeing the counselors. And then that's, it gives the child some sense of, I may not be in school, but I'm seeing people that I know.
Right. You still give that safe space.
Right.
I got a question.
Yes.
As an educator, I'm going to go back to when we first was released from school back in March. And when we got thrust into the virtual learning, that first part of virtual learning, and the struggle that I had, I wanted to know what strategies can you give educators on how to keep students engaged in the virtual classroom?
Okay, so first of all, you have to be engaged in the regular classroom. That is
with the basic one, yeah.
So we are making like this a big deal. So now, don't get me wrong, virtual learning is hard. Like every day I left, I went to sleep for about 4 or 5 hours. And there's a difference, because it's hard to say, okay, especially if you have 15 students, it's like, come on, I need you, I need you here, watch my face. But you have to make sure that you're animated. Make sure that the content and the delivery of the content is excellent. Make sure that you're taking those little breaks, because virtual learning is different than the classroom. Make sure that you're not nagging the students. In my class during the summer, my children came to class with pillows and blankets, and they laid down and they learned, and I respected that. So I wasn't like, you need to be at a desk, you need to be sitting down. These kids are going through enough. As long as they're learning, meet them where they are. As long as they're engaged, meet them where they are, and have the content, share your screen, allow them, because there are virtual manipulatives online, allow them to be able to do the place value virtual manipulatives, allow them to read, put them in breakout rooms on Zoom and have fun activities for them. A lot of our learning is going to need to be project-based learning, and not so much, okay, this is what this is, and so I'm teaching you this today. It has to, like, after you leave virtual learning, you need to be real tired, like really tired. And so, again, you have to come with a mind saying, I know this is, this may be difficult, but I'm going to give it all I have. And sometimes you miss the mark, and sometimes the students are like, I don't feel like this, and that's okay. We're not going to be great every day. We strive for greatness. And
as a hands-on teacher, I'm always about movement.
Yes.
I'm always about movement, and that was a struggle. So on your blog, do you have resources for those what I call lit and learn teachers.
Oh, I like that. Lit and learn.
Yeah.
No, but I can make something, but what I did with my kids is we had a dance session.
Okay.
So Ty Tribbett has this African melody song. And honey, when I say the kids got brooms, they were jumping off of the beds. One boy took his comforter off the bed and was swinging it around the room. So that's the stuff that they enjoy. Let them be kids. And I was like, your mama is going to kill you because you taking the spread off the bed, baby. But I laughed because like one girl had the broom and was sweeping her mama's wall. I said, oh, y'all are out of control. But I mean, it's what they love. We were doing nouns. And so I told them to do a scavenger hunt. I gave them 5 minutes. And so they knew like setting the tone for your classroom day one is very important. So that when I said 5 minutes, they knew you better have your tail back in the room in 5 minutes. But they had their sheet of paper. They had their graphic organizer. And guess what they were doing? Going around the house using the graphic organizer. That gets them up and learning, and they're not in front of the computer.
Yeah.
And so even though it's virtual learning, there are activities that you can do to keep the children engaged, have them jump up and down, you know, dance. There are YouTube videos. If you're a kindergarten teacher, I like to count by 10. You got to get up and move with these kids, and they'll be more engaged because virtual learning is hard.
Well, let me ask this last question then, Ms. Ty. When we talk about these kids and these special education kids, me being a parent of a child who has special needs, what would you recommend for a parent or an educator who has their child doing the virtual learning and that child has been used to that structured in-person instruction? Now they are relegated to this virtual learning. How can you engage that special needs child to be able to do the virtual learning?
Start transitioning them. And doing a little bit at a time. We were privileged to be able to host a child with Down syndrome this summer.
Okay.
And so we went back because I want to make sure every child can come into my program. So I don't deny children, but I want to make sure that we can serve them. And so me and her mother went back and forth trying to see if this would be the best environment for them. And number one, the special ed teacher should be in the class as a co-teacher. That's number one. Right. And then number two, at home, what you can start doing is just doing like 30 minutes at a time online and just engaging them with, you know, free resources. So they're getting, you know, used to working online. And so now they're back in their class. Talk to them about, you know, you show excitement. And so even though they're used to that hands-on and that one-on-one, the reality is it's not going to happen. Not right now. And so you prepare them at home, like, baby, we have a class today, but let daddy show you these things and let's work just 20 minutes right now on the computer. And so, you know, your baby will be able to transition with ease. And so that would be my only suggestion. The child that we had this summer with Down syndrome, it was, she has an aide at school.
Right.
She didn't have an aide with us this summer. But guess what happened? The aide handicapped her. So she was always used to the aide giving her answers, not here. And so she had to work independently. There was somebody, her grandmother was in the room with her, but she had to work independently. And so guess what happened? She was able to raise to our expectations.
Right.
And so we saw her move and grow because we didn't pity her. We didn't say, oh, you have Down syndrome, so now we have to treat, no. You're gonna get this work and on your level. And we made it easier. So there were a lot of videos there. You know, we gave the mom just the outline and she had needed manipulatives. So there were things that, you know, and so the teacher, it was a lot of you say this and I'm going to say this. So the back and forth piece. So that was that accommodation piece. And it helped that the class was small too.
Right. Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. I have one.
I'm good. Sis, you answered everything. I'm good.
Thank
You
you.
ain't answer everything.
Oh,
I got a petty question for you because we good friends. I'm gonna be petty on this one. All right. CEO Ty, let me ask you a question about this new math y'all got going on. All y'all teachers.
Talk about the new math.
Now, what do I do when I have the urge just to tell my son, just carry the 9, son. I ain't got time for that.
We do not carry, we regroup. And that is why we teach place value first, because we're showing the children that like 10 tens can't be in a ones. You have to carry it, you will not carry, but you have to take it over to the tens place and we'll regroup. Okay. And so using those, y'all got to stop saying carry and borrow.
No, it remainder when you divide.
Oh, y'all got to stop. Y'all have to stop. Please stop.
You know
and
that.
And guess what? This causes you to shift. And so it's no longer, oh, this is what I did. Because this new math, what everybody is saying, it introduces the children to new concepts. Their processing is different. Critical thinking. They're able to solve the problem and then write or explain how they got it. So guess what you're doing? You have the problem, and which is reading. They're solving the problem, which is processing and that comprehension. Do they understand? And then it's that explain piece, whether orally, if they're in kindergarten, or if they're older, it's written. So now you've incorporated reading, that processing, comprehension, and writing in one setting. And so a great resource for this is Engage New York. For parents who are home, it's a great resource. It's free. The lessons and the answers are there for you. And it's aligned to the Common Core.
Engage New York.
EngageNewYork.org.
I'm going there right after we get off of here. You hear me?
It's in English. It's reading and math.
Okay.
It's a lot of parents carrying the 1.
Please stop.
Let's be real. Let's be real. And those are going to be some of the challenges. Those are some of the challenges.
Yeah. And so you want that critical thinking. It's hard, but you have to learn it. You have to adapt. This is a new wave.
Yep.
You said what?
You still gonna get the same answer. Be carry the 1.
Goodbye.
I think this is gonna be for another conversation. Because it just made me think how you have parents who are accustomed to that old math, the carry the 1, then you have this new math. And so I'm like, now when a child bring on homework and the parents don't know it.
Yeah.
They learning the math with the kids.
Right.
Yeah, that's
They're
true.
looking at each other like, I don't know, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yelling doesn't make it any different.
Nah.
It doesn't change.
Yeah, maybe that is another session that we do though, because there are parents who do struggle with that. So I was joking around, but for real, when you brought it home the first couple of days, I had to learn it myself. Yeah. Because I was like, man.
Yeah.
Hey John, how can you do homework when the home don't work?
Right.
Oh, that's good.
Come on now. Let me pass the offering.
Go on and pass the plate.
Also writing. Can we talk about that quickly?
Yeah.
We no longer do 5 paragraphs. We have to stop that. There's a process for writing. And so writing is going to be the read and respond. And so they're responding to expository text and reading, and then they're comparing and contrasting text and answering questions, in written form based on what they read, looking at 2 texts. So it may be a solid paragraph, but using evidence from the text. So all do a 5-paragraph essay no, so it's so different now, but it's causing them to be critical thinkers.
Okay.
That's good. This has been so rich, Ty. We really appreciate you for joining us on tonight at our presentation of our first leadership lab. You are our first leadership lab. So you came through with the come through on tonight. And I know you helped a lot of parents, educators, and administrators on this evening. We're going to certainly post many of these resources that she mentioned on the Better Glynn page so that you guys can be properly equipped with free resources forward this fall to help you to better steward your kids as you work through this virtual learning process. And we're looking forward to possibly having Ty back. There's a lot of stuff we need to be talking about with you. So Ty, could you go?
I'm sorry. I just want to interject one more thing.
Go
You'll
ahead.
see resources, but please don't overwhelm yourself with the resources. Please don't have your child sitting at the table 3 and 4 hours doing work. Right now, they should be doing at least 30 minutes a day. That's it. 30 minutes a day. So 4 or 5 hours, that's too much. All right. So just
way too much.
Yeah. So just make sure that, again, you're not overwhelmed with all of the resources, that you're just using a few at a time and you're working on one subject a day, and you can integrate math into cooking. So, make it work. Have fun. That's the best thing, being at home with your children. You really get to see, and that's another homeschool thing. Like, you really get to see the deficits. You really get to see where you need to work. You really get to see your child for who they are, because when they're with a teacher for 7.5 hours a day, you really don't know your children. You really don't.
Yeah.
I'm an educator, and we spend every waking moment with our children. And when I started homeschooling my girls, it was a wake up call for me. So it's different.
Yep. Wow. So besides your blog, could you point them to other resources you may have, even the fall resources you mentioned about some of the academy stuff that you're doing?
Sure. So if you go to my website, educationallyspeaking.net, you will be able to access our online academy, because the online academy web address is too long. But you'll be able to access that under the resources. So we have the blog, educationallyspeaking.blog, my website, educationallyspeaking.net, and that is where I have all of the resources. Through my website as well, you'll also be able to go to my Teachers Pay Teachers website. On that website, I have, especially if you are a parent of a child that is like 4 years old, 5 years old, I have amazing resources for you. I have books that I wrote myself that includes the Lexile level, as well as the short and the long vowel for your child to work on. So they're like early readers. You can download them. There's a pack of 5 that you can purchase as a group, or you can buy them individually. We also have another resource, our Read to Succeed book. Guys, it's literally step-by-step through the short and the long vowels on how to teach your child to read, along with instructional videos. You can't mess up at all. So that's on my online academy. Our YouTube channel is Educationally Speaking Center for Learning. Our podcast, I haven't done an episode yet, is Educationally Speaking. That's on iTunes and Spotify. And I think that's it. Oh, and if you follow me on Instagram at Educationally Speaking and Facebook at Educationally Speaking, especially on Instagram, if you click the link in my bio, you'll be able to access all of the resources. Okay. So that's the easiest way to access the online academy, the blog, YouTube channel, and everything.
That's great. So a wealth of resources from Ty. Make sure you guys go over and check all those out. Let me tell you, my son started her program before he started kindergarten, and it was over a summer. She had that boy reading at 12th grade level. I'm messing with y'all, but the boy was on fire after the summer. So certainly she is someone who is not only just saying this is what she does, but I've seen the proof of it. My son's now in the Alpha Gifted program, and a lot of that's due to some of the things that she did with him in her program. So I appreciate you, Ty, for everything that you've done, not for me personally, but just for our community.
Like I said, the proof is, even my youngest, she's going into the 5th grade, but in the 4th grade, she was reading on a 8th grade reading level. And so in the fluency high, it starts at home. Like literally, you can give me a non-reader and listen, they'll be reading on a 27th grade level. by the time I finish.
Got 20. You made up a grade, huh?
She making up stuff.
Up a
But she
grade.
for real.
I know you
Listen,
good, but God,
she,
no.
Listen,
she's for real though.
I'm dead serious. It's a gift, and I'm thankful for that. And I train and it's like I don't tutor anymore because I'm charged with running the center. But my teacher tutors are bad. Like when I say bad, they are bad. So, I train every one of them. I'm Orton Gillingham trained. When I say we have a wealth of resources, we power packs. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you all for joining us for our Leadership Lab on tonight. We want to give you all a quick preview of what we're going to be doing on next week so you can prepare yourself because we're excited about this as well. Next week, we're going to be having a policy perspectives conversation on law enforcement and community partnership. And we're going to be talking specifically about citizens oversight and a citizens oversight board for our county police department and the importance of community policing. I'm going to bring back Chris Bruce from the ACLU to do some training on that. And then Nadine Jones, who's a lawyer who started this new initiative that talks about community policing and relationships within the community around county and city police departments. You guys have to be here because it's super important that you realize that you have power and you're supposed to be overseeing the county police department as county taxpayers in Glynn County. So this is going to be a session that's going to help empower you to be able to do that. So we'll see y'all on July 30th next week at 6 p.m. Eastern. Just want to thank Ty again and my esteemed colleagues, Dewana and Kelly, for joining me on tonight. This has been brought to you by... Go ahead, one more plug.
One more plug. You know how we do. For those parents that are watching this or may look at the replay, I offer homeschool consultations. And when I say I literally take you from beginning to end, and the title is Finding Joy in the Journey, I will literally whip you into shape and you will be ready for this virtual learning piece. And if you choose to homeschool, I will get you ready so that you will be equipped with everything that you need in order to, have success with your child. And you can find that on my online academy.
Right.
That's great. Man, thank you again for offering all this to these folks, because I know that this can have a great impact on learning. And I'll just say specifically in our communities, in Black and Brown communities, where there's certainly neglect there. So I'm grateful for you.
Thank you so much.
All right, y'all. Y'all have a good night. Enjoy your dinner. We'll see y'all later.
See you later.
Right.